To order for the Board of Water and Wastewater Commissioners at the Harwich Water Department at 196 Chatham Road, Harwich, Mass. on Wednesday, April 12th, 2023 at 11:42. First, executive session, public comments. Oh, Wellesley had a public comment. And did you say you had a public comment?
No, I was being
okay.
facetious.
I'll come back to Wellesley. A motion for the consent agenda for the March 23rd, 2023 minutes.
I'll move that we approve the March 23rd, 2023 minutes as presented to us.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. The March 20th will be be ready for the next meeting. Abatements, we have none. Old business, we have none. New business is the Route 28 presentation. Ms. Human is here to go over that with us. So thank you. I want to wait for Alan because this is probably the top priority, but I'm not really sure how much longer it'll be. So if you don't, sure, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you. Dan asked me to come here to talk about the Route 28 water line replacement and costs that we're going to get to the town meeting to request and kind of how we came up with this stuff. So, next page. It's one project,
Okay.
but we've divided it into 3 phases because it may construct in 3 phases, and each phase is really pretty different, but I think Dan's going to do one
All right. I'm sorry, Nancy. Before you go any further, I know you have other stuff you have to do, but you have other stuff you want to do? You have a public comment you
I
want to
just
make?
have a real quick
Okay.
announcement, if it's okay?
Yes, yes.
I just wanted to let everyone know that the third quarter bills are going into the mail this week,
Okay.
and due date is May 15th, or excuse me, May 17th. So, just so everyone's aware.
Due May 17th, yeah.
Yeah, so they're in the mail, so hopefully you'll be getting them sometime.
Great. Thanks.
That's all.
Thanks, Rosie.
Thank you.
Sorry, Nancy. Thank you.
So phase 1 is Division Street to the Herring River Bridge, and Mass DOT is reconstructing this roadway, and because we couldn't get done before they got in, and we can't do it after they get in, we are now part of their project. We're going to be part of their construction project. So this has actually worked out great in the benefit to Harwich because they're paying for pretty much everything. We just have to pay for the pipeline. It's not quite defined yet, but pipeline services, even they're paying for the hydrants. We just have to supply them.
Oh.
Because I think they were looking at having to move them anyways, but they're widening the road. So it really reduced the cost to you. And they're anticipating fall of 2024, although this seems to be a moving target, but it doesn't really matter at this point because we don't have to get done before they get in, which is a concern that we weren't going to be able to do that. So the cost, the way that we determine the cost for phase 1, they publish a weighted average cost table, and they update it all the time. And so I grabbed the last year. I wasn't able to grab any shorter time period for some reason, so I grabbed the last year. And it's really a pretty strong database, I think, at this point, because they have more lineal feet of everything that's gone in than anybody else. And for costing this out, I use their bid items and their costs that they have, their average costs. And so that's how we calculate that.
Makes sense.
This is what we came up with. It's approximately 3/4 of a mile, about 4,000 feet of pipeline, 12-inch. They're doing the traffic control, they're doing the police, they're doing mobilization, they're doing everything. So really all we had, we put a 10% contingency, and normally our construction phase services are 12%. We put in 8%. We still need to verify pressure testing and who knows really how that interaction is going to go as far as what we have to do. But we reduced our costs. And the bottom one says no control density fill. By standard requirement, DOT requires instead of backfilling the trenches, control density fill, which is really expensive. And we can talk about that later. But since this is a DOT project, they waive it. So that really, because they can make they become responsible for
Gotcha.
the roadway, I guess, and so, anyways, that really significantly lowered the price. So it costed out at this point at 2.7, and then, recommended appropriation question. I mean, you can do anything you want, but I put in 3.2 there, just have a little buffer.
Noreen?
I just don't want to get too far, so if it's all right for me to ask that. It's probably a crazy question, and I'm sure Dan probably already thought of it, but, so this says that we're only responsible for installing the pipeline. So they're supplying, we're buying the pipeline as well.
Yeah, material.
Right.
We'll pay they'll put it out to bid, and we'll pay for the section that has to do with, even just from our conversations, it was just the pipeline, not even the backfill.
Right.
So,
Right. So, can we buy additional pipeline on their bill to lower our price on the bridge to Lower County Road section?
We don't actually get, we still have to pay for the cost of the pipe, right? The only
Right.
thing there would be in economies of scale if you're buying
Okay.
1,000 linear feet versus 10,000
Right.
linear feet. But I don't know that there would be a
Yeah, all right.
significant
Just-
savings
see,
between
we
the two.
haven't- Also, it'll be a contract bid price, it's not like material price, and DOT tends to get a little bit more expensive on the pipeline per
Oh, really?
linear foot because they're hiring a roadway contractor.
Yeah,
So
yeah, all right, I just was
I'm hoping we're gonna get. much
curious how the
prices
whole
on-
thing worked. Very
Yeah,
good,
that's a pretty thought.
thanks.
So phase 2 would be the bridge to Lower County Road, and it's actually the west side of the bridge. That's where they're ending their project, so they didn't allow us to go beyond that. So this is 9,400 linear feet. We have to replace the pipeline that's under the bridge right now as part of this project. And we can award perhaps as early as fall, or depending on how all things work out, but if we get it appropriated and funds by July, it's just a matter of getting the design and review and everything done. Then it can go to bid at any time. It's still a Mass DOT road. We still have to meet, they have standards that they make us meet. In the design, they have standards in construction. They probably are gonna make us replace half the roadway pavement.
Oh, they wouldn't do that?
They're not, so, this is part of, so the first, phase 1 they're doing, because
Okay.
they're doing this project.
Oh, on phase 2,
Phase
sorry.
2.
Okay.
They have some, and we have to get their permits, there's a lot of coordination that goes along with that. It raises the price a little bit, state highway. But we know that working on state highway is required, so.
Keep going forward.
Sure. So in costing this, we're still in the unknown times because of COVID and supply chain, and one of the big ones was ductile iron, which is what we're putting in, and so, there's 2 ways that I costed this out. I looked at some historical projects, we do, bid prices that we've had, they were pre-COVID, and then you can inflate them to the current time period. But also I looked at Mass DOT because they really have a really good database. As far as gravel, roadway, pavement, their numbers are probably spot on because that's who they're hiring, they've done so much of it, and even they have a lot of linear feet of pipelines. So I did look at historical bids, compared it to some of the DOT costs, and relied quite a bit on the weighted average. They actually, they give you overall for the whole state weighted average, and they give you by area. So we actually had Cape Cod numbers, and so for things that were local, like pavement or concrete or that kind of thing, I would use the local numbers, but then I use the statewide for other things because there was just greater quantity, more bids, more data. So that's what I used for this cost.
Noreen?
I noticed, Nancy, that on this portion, phase 2, you mentioned, the supply chain possible problems and stuff
Right.
like that. But you didn't mention that in phase one, and I didn't know if, you just didn't put
No.
those words in, or if it's a different set of circumstances because DOT isn't involved, or,
Well, that's a great question, because that's one reason we went with DOT, because it could be a problem, but it does not become our problem if we're in DOT's contract. If we have to
Okay.
get done before DOT gets in.
even buying the pipe that we're paying.
Right, so basically with DOT, where it is under their umbrella for the phase
Okay.
one area, they're going to assume responsibility for any material delays that happen under their contract.
Contract times.
Whereas, where we're trying to do this, potentially in
Right.
advance of them, if we put this out to bid and had a delay, they would have just went ahead with their project
Right.
anyway. So it's actually worked out to our benefit.
Do we know why they're stopping at the bridge?
That was, yes. So
Okay.
the Route 28 project from the town line to the bridge was a Harwich project, a town of Harwich project, and that's the area that the town sought to repave. I would say there are a couple reasons we didn't go to the bridge. One, with upgrading to the DOT standards for roadway width, sidewalks, all that stuff, they likely would have had to reconstruct the whole bridge, which makes it a much more substantial project. I don't think there was the appetite to get into rebuilding the Herring River Bridge. That's the,
Okay.
But is the Herring River Bridge due for rebuild? Because that's
50s, 1950s.
yeah,
50s?
yeah.
Well, it's inspected on a
built in the
regular basis. I mean,
1950s.
there's a building,
Yeah.
there's a bridge department.
Yeah, it's DOT ultimately.
Yeah, they do the bridge inspections, so I mean,
It definitely is the second bridge in my life. I remember the first one. It was the two cars.
was it a drawbridge? Oh.
No. We didn't go that far. They didn't have any ships coming up the river.
With the poles.
There's rafts.
We're merciless.
Rowboats.
Not just Alan.
No. Is it
That's right, yeah, late, that's what
is it
happens.
late 50s?
I'm trying to remember, we had the as-built. I'm not sure.
Must be the late 50s.
Okay.
So,
Can we put a request in for DOT to inspect
So-
that bridge? I know they're on schedules, I know that.
Yeah.
I have a friend who works with the department, so I know they're on schedules.
50s, you were
I don't know if
like
you could put a
in
request in for a
kindergarten.
bridge to be inspected.
I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
I've been under
I don't
that
know.
bridge.
I
Looks
was
fine.
on,
Yeah.
So,
The issue is,
I graduated from high
are
school.
we gonna, I think
You're gonna go horizontal bore, right?
Must be
yeah,
drinking
but
good
well, we're
water.
gonna do both. We wanna
That's
replace,
part of it.
renew the pipe underneath the deck as well as a redundant line.
Oh, okay.
Underneath.
As a
There'll be,
loop.
Yeah.
two?
What's that?
There'll be two pipes?
Yeah, one hanging in the cavity under the bridge deck,
Yep.
and then one directionally drilled underneath the Herring River.
And the directional drill is phase 3, so.
Why are we having two pipes?
Redundancy, so
Okay.
if you have, think a sailboat, think storm surge, if anything goes up, that water main's just hanging underneath the bottom of the bridge
Yep.
deck. So West Harwich is fed by two water mains, one on Route 28 and one on Lower County Road, both susceptible to storm surge as they're both underneath the bridge deck. So the horizontally directionally drilled one underneath the river is to ensure we have a consistent water supply should anything happen to those bridges.
So you can sleep at night.
Yes, so I can sleep at night.
All right.
Could I ask a question? And I apologize if I've asked it before. Are you thinking of doing any kind of sensor system on the new pipes to be able to monitor it better? Is that something
For,
for whatever? I know they did that like 10 years ago in Washington DC and it like changed.
yeah, so
the
they
way-
have
But maybe
systems.
we're too tiny to even consider it.
Yeah, so I think what you're thinking about is leak detection.
Yeah.
So we have a set of data loggers that we lift and shift. So we put them in a gate box, they sit there for a couple nights, and every morning they turn on and radio out, the readings that they had. If it's noisy, right, that's indicative that there's a leak.
Oh, okay.
They have fixed systems that you will put in and leave there permanently,
Yeah.
but very expensive. We're actually looking at leak detection equipment. There's also some that strap onto the backside of hydrants, so they're not buried in the ground. So we've been actually looking at some of the newer leak detection equipment as the fiscal year closes, if we can, upgrade our equipment. I did apply for an ARPA grant, but we didn't get it for leak detection equipment. But we do a system-wide leak detection. It's something we do every year. I would say it takes about 2 years for us to get, the whole water system done. But we have, every year we do the annual statistical report, we quantify our unaccounted for water, and the DEP standard is at 10%, and we're typically well below that, anywhere from 4 to 6% unaccounted for water, which is very low. And that's, so we're not seeing problems that would warrant necessarily investing in, the town-wide leak detection. I think in some of the bigger cities, older systems, with bigger water loss, it makes a lot of sense to do that, but I don't think we're necessarily there yet.
Just wanted to ask, since we were opening up the ground.
Yeah.
That's all, yeah.
So this cost estimate, now we're paying for everything. So we have contingency, construction management, police detail, repaving half the road. We have, you notice I had controlled density fill. I put it separate so you can see the impact of controlled density fill. Plus that number then gets contingencies, all those percentages get added to them, so it's almost $1 million. So right now, I have it in there because we have not gotten approved to not put it in. There is a process, we will do that fairly soon, where we ask for an exemption. We've never gotten turned down on the exemption. That being said, we don't have it in hand, but probably that we will get an exemption and not have to control density fill. There's a lot of things in here besides just the pipe. One thing, Dan's purchasing a bunch of insertion valves. We're putting them in here. They're going to install them. Those are our valves. A lot of the valves are not working, the older valves, and so in order to isolate the system to construct the whole phase 1, phase 2, this insertion valve can be put on to shut down a pipeline. So he knows which pipelines the valves aren't working on. We're buying a bunch of those, and then his team will install them to shut off the side streets and stuff so that they can construct. We're purchasing hydrants for phase 1, so DOT will come grab the hydrants and put them in for us, and so he's just going to purchase them as part of phase 2.
Blue ones?
Looping Division Street, Division Street, although that's where phase 1 starts, we have to stay within the construction limits, DOT construction limits, and Dan really wants to take that pipeline and loop in north and south to create a better flow of water at the end of the line, so that we can do that as part of phase 2. We'll stub out beyond their paving limits, and then we can come in and move back to the existing pipes. Bridge crossing, Herring River Bridge crossing. This includes the bridge crossing underneath the bridge, not the directional drill. The DOT wouldn't allow us, we wanted to include in phase 1, and they end right at the bridge. We weren't allowed to go beyond that. So, and then restoration to mass DOT standards. You have to do a temporary patch for 3 months. We'll let it settle, and then they come back, and they'll probably have to do a 1-lane half-road weight paving is what I assumed at this point. That's what they have typically required. We haven't gotten the final word on it, but that's what's included in here. The price came out $10.9 million, and I put appropriation request 12 million once again, whatever Dan feels is best for it.
Noreen?
Thanks. So just for the layperson, where you say on Division Street, the looping in the 6 and 8, I mean, would that have been an opportunity if we wanted to do everything to stabilize the pipe diameter and eliminate some pipe discontinuity?
That's actually what one of these extensions on Division Street does. Right now, there's
Okay.
like it goes 8-inch down, and then there's a 2-inch main that runs, and I believe it's from the north that stops before it gets to 28.
Right?
And then on the south, it's coming up, I believe, a 6 or 8, and then stops. So
Oh.
this is
Yeah.
creating continuity where it doesn't exist and improving continuity where it does exist.
Thank you.
But that'll also tie in to the Lower County project portion that we did a couple years ago, right?
Yeah, if I can show, give me 1 second. Let me see if I can. I can show you exactly where we're talking here.
So Alan, while Dan's looking for that, basically what we covered before you got here was for phase 1, Mass DOT is basically covering everything. We're gonna pay for the pipe, supply the pipe, they're gonna put the pipe in. We'll supply the fire hydrants, they're gonna put the fire hydrants in, 'cause they're gonna be widening the road.
Yep.
And
But
it
we
was,
have to do the hookups, right?
yep, we're gonna do that.
The
Services.
Yep.
services, we're paying for those.
For like the backfill and all that stuff, DOT, Mass DOT is doing all that stuff. So basically you just missed, phase 1.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you're well aware of what's going
I'm
on.
okay.
So it's a little difficult to see the color. So the yellow is an 8-inch main, which, oh, sorry. Which stops right here. And then on the south side, from Willow Street, this is a 2-inch main. So we come from 6 to 2-inch,
Oh.
all the way
okay.
through, back up to 8-inch here. So one of the concerns is if for any reason we did have to supply West Harwich through the Lower County Bridge project, we would have major bottlenecks to get north of 28. So this is kind of reinforcing the distribution system there. That
That helps keeping the water circulating better. at the end of the-
Makes sense.
That's a good move.
And what size pipe do we have down Lower County? That's it? That's
16.
16, all right.
Okay, and Route 28 is gonna be 12.
Is they gonna tie that 8-inch into the 16?
The 12 on 28, yeah.
Or about on Lower County?
Lower County's already through
Is
16.
it already up there?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Lower
they just
County
gonna
16,
finish.
yeah, when we did that project, we increased the diameter of 16 all the way down Lower County.
Yeah.
It used to bottleneck, there was a 16 and an 8, and I think an 8 went under the bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's all
Yeah.
been
Where's
done.
the north-south 16? That ties into Lower County?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and we're connecting into that too, so.
On 28 at Lothrop,
Yeah.
there's-
also goes down to Lower County, the 16 there.
Yeah, okay, yeah, yeah. That's a 6.
16,
16.
Oh, 16 on
Low-
Lothrop?
Low
yeah.
County. Oh, on Lothrop is a 16?
Oh, I didn't.
Yeah, I
There's
can
a
show
north-south
ya.
tie-in right there, with the 16 to the 16.
Oh,
Everything else is
oh.
T
So
and
that's
Cs.
right from the tank.
Yeah, so the orange
Okay.
here,
Yeah,
that
that's
comes
right.
across and then goes down Earl Road to
So,
Lower County.
there was just a section that we redid there,
Yeah,
yeah.
on Lower County.
No, Lothrop,
Lothrop, yeah, we just did 300-foot directional drill.
that finished.
Yeah, where
Yeah,
that
okay.
main broke that
Yeah.
fateful December day.
It's always December or January when they
Yeah.
break.
Yeah.
Cold.
It's always December or January.
All right,
Okay,
all right.
All right.
And the directional drill, that we've kind of we talked about, we're showing it as a separate phase. It may be part of phase 2 or a separate phase. We've been talking about probably get some better prices if we separate it out. It's really not related to phase 2. It's a whole separate type of contractor, but we'll see how things go. So we already kind of talked about the vulnerability of the bridge crossings. This is what it looks like right now. We are gonna replace that. That's a 10-inch, we're gonna put in a 12-inch. But it's also been identified, you know, as an area where there could be sea level rise, hurricane flooding on the FEMA maps. And so this is just for redundancy and reliability. The cost estimate, we have a person in our company that's all they do is directional drilling, design and costing. So they're the ones that provided this cost. There's a good chance it could come in significantly less with Dan's done some that were less, but this was his cost based on some really detailed assumptions. So he came out at about $1.4 million on that. And this is just a summary. Construction total, 14 million, recommended appropriation 55.
Plus permitting.
Plus what?
Permitting? No?
Permitting?
Permitting's included
Oh,
in that. The permitting, I don't think we've already reached out and there's another project going on right now with the boat ramp right by the bridge and so we've been working with them and so far as we know right now, the permitting won't be too bad.
Find out.
No,
There's always some surprise.
Yeah,
Right now.
I mean, I'd say the conditions aren't too different than what we dealt with on Lothrop a few years ago when we did the directional drilling there, and I don't recall the permitting being particularly bad. I know conservation's pretty flexible, or as flexible as they can be with utility work. Although we're going under a river, so we'll see, but.
Yeah. When actually, probably the hardest one's gonna be DOT in this phase 2, and I'm fairly close to getting something submitted to them to start the process. The process is bureaucratic, so that's probably what's gonna do the timing of putting it out for bid and the DOT review.
So we have a placeholder presently, I believe, for town meeting at 17.5. So I guess with this, at this point, we could certainly amend on the floor to reduce that to 15.57.
Is it up to seven? Is it,
Yeah,
is like
well, that's
the
the thing,
verbiage
it's really
to?
up to, right? So we can either leave it, or we can reduce it. If we leave it, that doesn't mean we're gonna spend it,
Right, right.
you know.
Or we can amend it on the town meeting floor
Right.
if we have bids.
If we, yeah. But
So-
we need the bids, right?
Yeah, which we,
Definitely.
So the
Bids-
difference.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
the bids wouldn't be in before
Yeah.
town meeting, yeah, so we
Right.
won't have bids.
Oh.
I agree with Alan, we can always amend it on town meeting floor. I'm not inclined to amend it before then
Right.
because of the supply chain and there's nothing wrong with, I'm sure the superintendent will be called on to give a 2-sentence overview, and there's nothing wrong with you saying that you're hopeful that it might come
Yeah.
in $1 million or $1.5 million lower, but of course with supply chain things, and then we're covered.
I wouldn't even bother, I would just, work the project.
Yep,
If it comes in lower,
that's right.
amend it.
Come in afterwards and look
If
great.
not, if it comes in higher,
Yeah.
we're ready to go.
I hate to
So-
amend it on the floor and then have to
Yeah,
come
I
back
know,
and
have
ask
it
for more
come in
money.
high.
Right, yeah.
yeah,
Maybe-
that's true.
Yeah, good.
Just a question on the bids. Just given what happened with COVID and supply chain challenges, have bids changed at all so that they can be more flexible? If they're putting in a bid like in May for a project that's gonna happen 18 months from May, is there like a placeholder for a 10% wiggle room on their side?
No, well, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not aware of any. I know on like some projects with things like fuel, right?
Right.
Or at paving projects, they have like clauses or, that can escalate or de-escalate a
Yeah.
price based on, market fluctuation. I'm not aware that that has been implemented for water projects, but
I've seen it sometimes in specs, but unfortunately what happens is that the contractor will just put that into the bid, they'll put their bid based on that uncertainty.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, and since COVID, prices have gone way up, but at some point, you know, I'm
get back
thinking,
to-
yeah, and with DOT not even going to bid for another year and a half, who knows what climate we'll be in. So I like your idea of going a little bit higher, because we have no idea in a year and a half
Right.
when they go to bid. They keep moving it out, but I'm hoping they won't move it out soon.
So between phase 2 and the summary report, there's a difference of like $2,000, 2.8. Because in the summary it says 10.8, in phase 2 it says 12. So is that,
Catch can.
Right.
Yeah.
that says
Nice.
12 there?
That's appropriate, recommended appropriation request. Do I have something different?
Yeah.
I got 10.8 on the summary, which I'm happy with that.
Okay, that one.
I'll double check. I redid the numbers. This is probably the more accurate one.
Because the
did
12,
numbers
I'm thinking
and-
the 12 was, it has something to do with the 780, right? The density fell. We're probably gonna lose that, hopefully. And
I'm
then,
So-
gonna check and I'll let Dan know which one is correct.
okay.
So we don't have any extra if that one's correct
That's
anyway.
12, yeah.
Yeah, because that would be 1.2, so if we add 1.2 onto the 15.7, that's pretty, lot closer.
I think this is what's right, because I did do the cost estimate. I got some new information of what DOT was going to require for repavement, and when we did it, it lowered it. So I'm thinking that this is correct,
Okay.
but I can let Dan know for sure.
All right.
Good catch, Cal.
Yeah.
Hey, I try to
you
show,
know?
I try to show every once in a while, you know? I can't have all the good questions.
Brian, watch that elbow coming at
I'm going home to bed
Wow,
now.
I'm weak in the wrist now.
Stop.
Okay.
All right. Anybody have anything else?
All right. Well, thank you
All right,
guys.
thank you for coming and going through this with us, appreciate it.
Town meeting?
Oh, yeah, can't
We
wait.
can touch base on MVP stuff?
Yeah, maybe this afternoon?
Yeah.
New wells, I'm sorry, are we okay with that?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. New well source exploration, phase 2.
All right, so I included in the packet the proposal from GZA, who did complete the first phase of the new source exploration, to try and cut the meat and potatoes, if you will. Their proposal for the next phase is currently estimated at $451,500. I had a meeting with them a week or so ago to just go through the proposal. There's a couple things that are not itemized in here. I did ask them to get some additional pricing for me. One of the things, for example, was they didn't have a full site survey in their cost. They were hoping that the town of Harwich would either have a surveyor or have a lead on a surveyor, but we don't presently have a surveyor, and when we did the land acquisition out here, it took a good year or so to get the survey done. So I've kind of put that back on them to see. I did get an email this week. They're going to be getting me some updated pricing. There's also water quality analysis that is not itemized in here that I just got a Excel table with all the water quality sampling that we will need to do, so I need to just cross-reference that against our lab cost sheet. That said, we currently have a cost of $600,000 for town meeting this spring. I would suggest keeping that $600,000 number. I think that would be sufficient to cover this survey, water quality analysis. One other thing that I did request of them to bring back to the board is what do the next phases look like. So this is really getting us through the prolonged pump test. This is going to identify what the capacity of the well is going to be, but there's going to be subsequent things that need to take place designing treatment plant modifications, collection system, or distribution system modifications. So this is still an intermediate phase before we would be going to construction. So I have requested additional cost estimates that we would look for in the out years, but I'll bring those back once I have them.
Norton?
So for the layperson, that's a great way, because, it sounds like I'm doing it for the audience, and it's really for me. So is this a definite spot now, this exploration location?
This-
I read so many different locations in reading this.
Yes, so it is, I don't want to say definitive.
Right.
Because there's a whole host of water quality sampling that we need to do.
Okay.
In addition, the prolonged pump test will reveal if we have any negative impacts to adjacent water bodies, so
Mhm.
that could certainly limit, the viability of the site. But it's part of the exercise, essentially, that we have to go through to
Right.
tease that all out. Assuming we don't discover, terrible water quality, assuming we don't have a negative impact on adjacent water bodies, this would be the final location, but not the final installation.
And where is this?
North Harwich,
Okay.
by well 10.
Okay. And I heard you say in your summary, I heard you say something about accommodations for a treatment plant.
So depending on the water quality that we discover out there from this production well, we have the well 10 treatment plant that exists, presently. That
Okay.
plant we may need to add more filter
Right.
vessels depending on the
Okay.
water quality that we discover at the well. So well 10 filter plant was designed to receive or take additional capacity. The building has room for additional filter vessels. What is needed in those filter vessels and the extent of treatment is determined at a later date after we get water quality sampling.
And last question, truly for the layperson, I mean, why do we look near another well as opposed to a different area?
Well, this one, for this specific project,
Right.
we had wanted to site a well field north of Route 6. Just in case there was any tractor trailer flipped over. We just saw in the news one of the trucks hauling topsoil from the derailed site in Ohio flipped
Okay.
over, right? So if the water all goes north to south towards our wells, so that kind of gives us system redundancy to the north side of Route
Yeah.
6. In addition, where we have an existing treatment plant with capacity to handle that would, keeping it in close proximity to that makes it much easier to address any water quality samples as opposed to going in a different location.
Thank you.
The other thing too was where the creamery business has changed. There's ponds there that fed creamery bugs. That just kind of set now.
Right.
So, it is
Yeah.
a good spot for it, environmentalists.
No, just curious. Great.
I'm hoping due to the depth and the soil composition there that I'm really keeping my fingers crossed we don't have any issues with adjacent water bodies. There's a big clay layer above the depth where the well is, which should help to limit impacts to adjacent water bodies, but we'll find out.
Yeah. I'd be surprised if it does affect water.
I hope it doesn't,
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think they were talking anywhere 500 to 650 gallon per minute well.
Yeah.
So that would certainly boost the system. Maybe not for today's discussion, but certainly one worth having as we continue on this project. We could do, say water quality is decent, we don't need to add new filter vessels, and we can install the permanent well, connect it into Station 10. We could conceivably at that point be done. I think I've talked before about a desire to run a cross-country water main from the Well 10 site to the backside of the Azalea Drive, Headwaters neighborhood. Treatment plant modifications may be necessary. At some point, after we get past this second phase, we're gonna have to make a decision as to what we wanna design. Do we want to include this as one full project? Do we want to wrap up treatment plant modifications, final well construction, and the distribution system, cross-country water main? It's probably appropriate now that we're getting up to town meeting that we bring the capital plan back for discussion as we typically look at, adding projects to those out years or amending what we need to, but.
Do we not the town own any property up in the Pleasant Lake area that we could create a well to? Excuse me.
Outside of the one we're looking at now?
Yeah. Actually, no, that would put us, well, if we could get north of the highway.
Well, that's what that cross-country water main, so we have, they're redoing the bridge right now on Azalea Drive as part of the Mass DOT project. We currently only have an 8-inch water main that runs down through the bridge underneath the creek there. I actually had DOT install 2 dual 12-inch mains under the new bridge so that we could accommodate a transmission main from North Harwich to the Pleasant Lake area. So that would, from, hydraulically, we have the tank, the Pleasant Lake tank, when the pumps are off, that would, certainly reinforce North Harwich's water pressure, water quality, and then when we have the treatment plant running, that would do the same to help support filling the Pleasant Lake tank. So I think it's a great project.
Yeah.
It's just where we're looking at cost escalation on Route 28. We have, the spider leg tank on 39 that needs to be rebuilt at some point. We have Well 10, we got a lot of pretty big projects that we're gonna have to prioritize and balance with rates and all that, so.
That area, I know some call it the old golf course, or was gonna be the golf course. If we weren't looking at that area as a recharge area, or if it doesn't work out as a recharge area, would that be a town area, town-owned area that would be a potential for a well?
Yeah.
Because that's a pretty big area, I
Yeah.
mean, what my
100
limited
acres,
knowledge
I
of
think,
it.
Something like that.
Yeah,
Where is it? Sorry, is this still North Harwich? Is it
Yeah.
the same site?
no, not the same site, it's,
Here.
north of, it's kinda like where the pet cemetery used to be,
Yeah.
but beyond Route 6.
On the other side of
Yeah.
Route 6?
Yeah, north
Beyond,
side.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So it's like you see all our neighborhoods and headwaters, but
Yeah.
then there's the big,
well,
there was Marcelline's.
Behind Marceline's property.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
actually, that's what my thought process was, right in.
I thought, yeah,
How's that-
I read
how's
your
that
mind.
land?
Yeah.
How's that soil condition over there being a previous,
I wouldn't know at this
Right.
point.
yeah.
If it's like my garden, it's terrible. but that's all right.
I have to say, Jim Marsline was a very conscientious guy as far as, what went in the ground and all that stuff. And the fact that he cleaned that place up at the end, I would find it very, very difficult to think that there's pollution from the junkyard. He's very much aware guy
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
where his water came from. And I take my hat off to him. So when he cleaned up, he cleaned up.
Yeah.
No, truthfully, I would think that soil might be better than where all the houses developed were put in. That soil is junk that was brought in by, that's what I meant, that was brought in by developers. That stuff is really, really foul stuff,
I mean, if I was to be really cautious, I'd worry more about the bogs,
Yeah,
Right. But I think by now that they're pretty well flushed.
yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So more to come, but
Mhm.
just as we're getting closer to town meeting, we're getting more info on next phase of this project, so. That's all I got on that.
2022 water restriction hearings.
So I had the first round of hearings with the Orleans District Court the Monday before last, last Monday. We had 6 hearings. They dismissed 3 of them, and they upheld reduced fines for 3 of them. The 3 fines that were upheld were all reduced from what they were down to $200. So I also learned another part of this whole process. So the meeting with the magistrate is not necessarily the end of the run here. If the person contesting the violation still has an issue with the magistrate's determination, that's when it goes and is heard before a judge. So
Really?
no one has elected to do that so far, but there is
And it can go
potentially
higher.
another step.
So they were knocked down to $200 from,
One of them was $1,300.
Wow.
If you give me, can I just run to my desk real
yeah,
quick?
I'm just wondering how much of a waste of time this is.
Just what you
Curious
think.
with
Such
the
a waste of time.
magistrate, so, yeah.
Yeah, it makes it hard to,
Yeah, $1,300 fine that gets knocked down to $200. Why, it's costing us
Yeah.
more to send them there.
yeah.
Just at the beginning though, Gary, you gotta look at the long game.
Oh, I am.
I don't think fines are the long game.
I don't think they are either, but it's part of the long game.
Yeah, the threat is,
And if it's only a few people, it's only a few people. I mean, clearly it's what, 6,
It was 6, yeah.
yeah.
6 left. I mean, there was a bunch before
Right, most
that.
people pay.
Yeah, we did have a couple people pay
Right.
leading up to. So.
Does he give a reason, a printed reason, when he just reduces it or whatever?
No, I mean, it was really, I didn't know, I was off Cape, I
Yep.
tried to do the right thing, I turned it off when, I got down, and that sort of,
Right.
response.
So there was
And
no question of, yeah.
I'm just trying to.
Sure, the judge said that's on.
So one went from 850 down to 200. One was dismissed, that was $150. One was dismissed, that was $150. One was dismissed, that was so all the $150 ones were dismissed. And we had one that was $1,350 reduced down to $200. One that was $450 reduced down to $200. And
What was the 1,300? What was their excuse?
let me get the other one first.
So $3,000, we collected 600.
And how long did it take for all this?
I know it.
Yeah.
And think of the staff with all the millions of letters they wrote out.
It's okay. I
everything else.
really, I think it's important,
Well, I'm just
you know,
reporting
I
it.
mean.
Yeah, but the
You know-
trouble is, I mean,
We can't
Barracks.
afford it.
yeah, it's almost says to us, it's a waste of time.
We're using rate,
Almost.
we're
Not
using,
I know.
Sort of.
okay, my
It made
problem,
more sense.
We were off, we
Yeah.
thought it was off.
My
my
Neighbors,
problem is we're
kid went over
using,
and
That's no
check
excuse
it.
on that one.
we're using ratepayers' money to subsidize this work. And I don't feel great about, I mean, we're just in the beginning, we'll keep trying things and everything else. But right now, we're using your money for your water bill, your money to, finance this.
But but it says, there's a message there.
Yes.
You're wasting your time.
Right, no, I know that, yeah,
No.
yeah.
Maybe our
I
local
think,
paper
well,
will interview the
If the court
judge.
doesn't back us up, then what's the point?
Well, I think,
Dan?
I think one of the issues that we dealt with this time, and I think next year, if we find ourselves in the situation, it wouldn't be as lenient. And when we set out, we were intending to do first written warnings consistent with the bylaw, our rules and regs, rather, not the bylaw. We didn't do that, or we did start out that way, and then Giorgio had told us, no, you gotta do it the way that the bylaw is. So now people were told they were gonna get a written notice, they
Right.
never got a written notice, they were fine consistent with the bylaw. We still have, which our rules and regs need to be adjusted to what the new bylaw is gonna be, but our regs are still inconsistent with the bylaw. So I think due to some of those issues, that they were a little bit more lenient than they could have
Right.
been had we had everything, neat and tied up in a bow. So I don't want to necessarily get too discouraged, because I think with some course correcting on our end,
Right.
I think additional burden of proof, not relying upon private, anonymous reports, if we can make improvements on all those things, I think we'll have a much better opportunity to collect.
As we were talking about fines and everything, what never occurred to me, I had an organization where we went to court every week, charge people all the time. That wasn't for fines. Now, it just hits me now. That was for their electric use. So no judge could
For their
decree.
what, sorry?
For their electrical use. It was electrical utility. So no judge could, I never heard of that before, because no judge could decrease that amount because it was their electric use. You can't say you don't, in a municipal, you can't say you don't have to pay your electric bill.
But this isn't their water bill, this is fines.
This is the fine, so they had that leeway to decrease, right? So it's just hitting
Yeah.
me now that we should, expect that more because it's not their water bill.
Right.
Or that maybe, next time this happens, it will be more clear cut. The customer will be protected from the judge's viewpoint. I think, I'm gonna guess, the magistrate said that's still a little wonky,
Yeah.
right? So,
I also think it's important for us, as it's now April 12th, we're, on the cusp of pumping season. I think I sent out in an email a couple weeks ago, we are gonna be, due to the new Water Management Act permit, the new DEP regulations with respect to drought management, they are expecting us, when a level 1 drought is declared for the Cape Cod region, they are expecting us to implement 1 day a week water restrictions. It's not up for us to debate whether we want to do odd even, whether we want to do, it's now written in stone that we are to do, drop down to 1 day a week. Level 2 is hand watering only outside the hours of 9 to 5 p.m. by drip irrigation watering can. They do make allowances for businesses that are also keeping up with ornamental landscapes for, I'll just use Wauquasit as an example. If they host weddings, and weddings are a core function of their business, and maintaining a aesthetically pleasing landscape is part of the, that's all allowable uses according to DEP, which I think is going to lend itself to some difficulty with public, if we're telling the public they can't water their lawn, but Wauquasit can keep their hydrangeas nice and blue, but that's, just something to think about as we
Yeah. I
move
mean,
into
it
this.
look like anything, landscape businesses, bush companies that sell plants
Mhm.
can all water. That was all part of it.
And to, just to put out how crazy this can be, right? So if we are in water restrictions, just as an example, you're not supposed to fill your pool. You're not supposed to fill your pool with garden hose, right? You're not technically, per our regs, supposed to fill your pool anyway, but you can't fill your pool, but you can pay a pool company with a water tanker to come in and fill your pool. So these are the sorts of,
Where are they
unique,
getting the water?
it doesn't matter, because providing that water is a core function of their business, it's an exemption under
All these
the water
workarounds,
use
yeah.
restrictions. So, it's,
You're probably getting your water from your spigot.
yeah, right,
Out
From
One-
your private well.
So,
Yeah.
people who bought all these pools last summer, these little blow-up pools, or these, PVC pools, they're not supposed to fill those pools with the hose?
The little kiddie pools, you mean?
I'm talking about, I'm talking about the good size
Oh.
4-footers that we delivered,
Right.
that they were, you couldn't buy one on Amazon, they were out of stock. I'm talking about the 4-footers, that PVC,
Yeah,
round, oval, whatever, that,
4 to 6 people
Yeah.
can fit in.
and then so, with the filter and everything and all that, you're telling me they're not supposed to fill that pool with a garden hose?
they are not underwater use restrictions. Well, I think
And what's the fine for that?
We have to make it up.
it would be the 100, 300, 50,
Stop
100,
it, Lori.
I was bought one. I went online to buy it, they were sold out.
Yeah.
You know that everybody would fill it with their hose, though. They're not gonna call a company.
I assumed they did too, but I didn't
Right.
realize it was against our regulations.
Oh, sure.
I didn't think about those
I know that.
pools. I only thought about the in-ground.
They go
Yeah,
for hot tubs too? Can't fill your hot tub?
technically, no.
I'm older than.
But one thing I was gonna say too was, I did a presentation for Mass Waterworks on water restrictions and, our experience last year, as well as a couple other water systems. And I guess, and I'm trying to think of the right way to phrase it, we have more latitude, per se, than the black and white text in our rules and regs or the bylaw. The bylaw doesn't say that the first offense is a written warning,
Right.
but we certainly can, if we want to, issue written warnings. There's nothing prohibiting us from doing that. I wish I had went through that exercise last year, because when we ran into the issue with the conflict between the bylaws and the rules and regs, I probably would have made the recommendation to continue with the written warning, but fine in accordance with the bylaw. So we do have some latitude
Right.
with respect to how we implement. Another thing, that we see, what we went through last year, we were having dog walkers every day, this person's using, this
Right.
person's using. And just the turnaround time to process, validate, by the time we even got one of the citations out, they have 5, 6 different fees. One of the water systems that also participated, they'll give a 2-week, grace period between when they issue the first written warning. Now, they're not gonna fine within the next 2 weeks. Once they have that 2-week lapses, now, okay, we'll give you the first citation. They give another 2 weeks to respond to that, and that's when they'll start doing the day-to-day. So there's internal procedures or policies that we can kind of establish in addition to the bylaws or regs that would certainly help the process internally.
Noreen?
So you just opened up a whole new field. What's wrong with that? I think it's a brilliant idea. And we haven't amended our other regs yet anyway, so we can do whatever we want. But what if, for a lot of the places that we got notified, small residential places, we just sent out a letter saying, and not a warning necessarily that you're gonna be fined, just a letter saying, we're aware that you have been not following our water regulations, and tell them about our aquifer and tell them this and say, listen, we're aware of what you've done, and you know what I'm trying to say. Don't threaten them with a fine, just for a lot of people, that'll be enough to make them turn it off, which is what we want, without having to go through the steps I'm not saying we do that for everybody, but for a lot of small homes, just do that. I mean, we're not gonna get any money back other than waste money when we go through the thing. I mean, if I got a letter like that, I would be very upset, and I would run right out and turn my water off,
Well, I think that goes along with the whole part of educating.
Exactly.
Well, we did do that. We did send out letters.
But our letter said, if you don't stop now, we're gonna fine you. I'm saying just send a letter that just says, listen, there's water restrictions, we know you use the water, this isn't good. You know, don't threaten to fine them, just send the letter. So now we're done, all we've done is send the letter. No other labor, no other courts, no, we'll probably keep a list of them,
Yeah.
you know, but,
Didn't we raise like 20, wasn't there, didn't you overall receive a pretty decent amount of money?
Well, if I can plug back in, let me pull up a slide from
Because I
presentation.
think the money's there, Noreen. I don't-
30,000, but
it's
that's
not.
nothing to the labor we used.
Well, especially,
For some, because this is gonna be a summer thing, right? I mean, theoretically, it's probably a 3-month.
so, the impacts to revenue, I think, yeah, we issued about 50,000, a little over 50,000 in citations. We collected, I think, 38 in change so far. But year over year for the summer quarter, we were down 200 and, I think, I'm pulling up the exact figures. but-
$250,000 is the
Yeah,
figure
$250,000.
we use.
I actually went
I guess
through-
my argument was just gonna be that we are collecting fines, and that fine money can be used to hire somebody part-time for the summer or full-time to address this particular issue, so taking that weight off of the regular staff.
Yeah, well, we have seasonal, so that was one of the things that I, we budget for the seasonal positions, and that would be my recommendation. If we find ourselves in restrictions, we should consider, an enforcement officer that works, 4 in the morning to 12. They can go out policing 4 in the morning and come back to the office at 9 and draft up whatever citations they get for the day.
I'd really like to pursue a letter that isn't a threat to fine, though. I
Yeah.
mean, maybe I'm the only one here, and that's fine, we won't do it. But I think it might have a lot of impact with very little cost and,
So just from a revenue perspective, we issued or collected, even if we collected 100%, right, of our fines, we're still looking year over year for the summer quarter, 21 to 22 is 260. 2020 to 22 is 550,000, right? So the generated amount from citations as compared to revenue loss, we're still very much upside down. So it wouldn't, really fund a new position, because it's hardly, it's a
Right.
fraction of what we're losing in revenue.
it's not the revenue that bothers me so much, because if we're under restriction, we're gonna be massively under revenue anyway, with or without fines. What bothers me is the staff's time, Dan's time, other people's time, and we can never get that time back. That's what bothers me. If we were in a situation we were allowed to do overtime shifts or something, and we paid for the overtime shifts out of the 50,000, like with seasonal kids or something like that, that would be one thing. But the duties that the staff did and that Dan did, we can never get that time back. That's what bothers me. The time's lost. And that means there's things that
But it's
Dan...
not lost, because honestly, this town is buzzing about water use. It's buzzing. People are talking about it.
Okay.
I don't think it's time, I get what you're saying, I totally, and I
Yeah.
completely respect it, but I don't know that if you know the impact that it's had on so many people, in a
Well,
good way. I think that education piece
No,
started.
let's say I'm totally ignorant of the impact. Okay, what I'm saying is Dan and the staff had a full-time job, and we carved out of that a third of their time. So whether it impacted people or not, we lost that time. We can never get it back.
But do you think out of all of that, that there is a message that there isn't an endless supply of water?
Yeah,
Do you think that?
yeah. But,
Because that's where it really needs the point needs to be made.
right. Okay, so all I'm trying to say is, it sounds like some people think the only way to get that message across is to find people, and I don't agree. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I think there are other ways to do it. Education,
Right.
a letter that isn't a threat, or stuff like that. I am not impressed by fines. I do not think they're the be-all, end-all of our existence.
I agree that to educate, we can't educate and threaten at the same time.
Right.
So I see what you're saying, I agree with you. I think we need to go along and continue the information, requesting people not to water, to adhere to the guidelines, especially now that they're coming from DEP. Before, this was coming from us.
Right.
We started this before DEP even put this into work. But it can't just be Harwich. It has to be Harwich, it has to be Dennis, it has to be Brewster, it has to be everyone pulling from that aquifer to really make a difference, because we're just gonna be a drop in the bucket. I mean, we need, and I think, again, reaching out to other towns to see how much they want to get involved, especially if it's coming from DEP, maybe not as coming from DEP, we all have to follow this. I think it would show more strength if we're all on the same page, all sending out the same newsletter, same information, and again, instead of threatening people and going to war with people,
That's the key.
requesting,
That's it.
asking,
Right.
Yeah.
and just trying to get them to see, understand their side, but try to get them to see our side too. Like,
Yeah.
and I think working with people and trying to be productive is going to be better than, here's the letter, we're going to fine you if you don't listen to us, and for right now, let's just try and get that momentum going with
Maybe
other
we-
towns and just try to get everybody.
Yeah.
I think it should be a Cape-wide at some point. You know, I know DP doesn't want to do this, they want to implement.
Well, what I was just pulling up is one of the other things that was covered in the webinar thing that I participated in is DEP has a whole Healthy Lawn, Happy Summer toolkit that they've put together all these graphics, educational materials. They even, just like the electric utility, would take some effort on our part
Yeah.
to get, the little smiley face to water, but that's certainly something that we can work towards.
Right.
People don't know that they're using more water than their
Right.
neighbor, right?
I would prefer doing this and spend our time, even if it's not you, because this isn't something that you have to do, we could do this and maybe get together with Jamie on Channel 18 and have a discussion about something like this, or, the pamphlets, or just, again, information, and hopefully at some point people are like, all right, you know what, let me try this, let me see how it goes, and let me try cutting back on the water and, see what this is gonna do.
Well, the other side of it too, I don't think people realize that there's 5 towns which draws in the same
Right.
well.
Right.
I think that's one of the missing facts.
Right. When you drive down Division and Harwich isn't watering and Dennis is, it doesn't make sense. I mean, I know why we're doing it, but we all need to be on the same
Yeah,
page
that's
as
right.
water.
It needs to be a joint thing.
Right.
Are you suggesting like different town water commissioners get together for,
Oh,
that would
well,
be kind of cool if we
yeah,
had a.
Definitely
Exactly.
needs to happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we try on
that'd be awesome.
the staff side to stay consistent. Last year, I was in contact with Dave and Dennis, I was in contact, Paul and Brewster, and,
Yep.
the other, surrounding communities. But where that starts to break down is when we elect to take action and others don't, right? I mean, it's, at some point, we either need to be on a unified front or not, and I think that gets tough when we have, though it'll be interesting to see, and also the question of enforcement, right? We can implement restrictions and not implement enforcement, though I believe DEP has the authority and has in the past requested for people who continually violate water permit volumes and things like that. They can say, hey, show me what your enforcement was and give me examples of the correspondence or fines or whatever that you gave out, right? So if DEP comes to us looking for that information and we elect not to enforce, they can then come back on us. So I think it needs to be a balance of,
Yeah.
good stewardship, communication, education, and where necessary, fine.
Yeah.
But, because we need to follow through and ensure that, the right thing is being done. But I don't know if we necessarily have to be guns blazing as
Right.
we were necessarily
Right,
last year.
I think it's more of a roundtable discussion, like I said, either superintendents or town administrators or whoever runs their department, that we all get together, wherever we meet, and try to bounce ideas off each other, come to a group decision, bring it back to our towns, and just keep the dialogue going about what we're doing as a group, as 5, 6 towns, and I think good things can come from that, especially with the education. And again, if you drive down one street and one town is one and one town's not one, they're like, what? Well, they might as well do it. I mean, because again, we're chasing them with fines, but we can get everyone on the same page. It's not going to be this year either. It's going to take a long time for us to get there, but it's going to be a benefit, I think, in the long run down the road.
And I would just love it if you guys think about flipping the idea that a fine is a threat and flip it into water is everybody's responsibility. Just like when you drive on a road, you have to follow the speed limits for safety reasons.
No.
And if you
That's
don't,
good.
yes, you can get a ticket.
Right.
And that's not a threat. I mean, you know it's coming because you know
Just be-
What I
that's the
was-
responsibility,
Okay,
right?
so-
Because it's a mindset and
It's funny that you use that example, because while we were sitting here, what I was thinking of when you talked about latitude and Gary I was saying, oh, so it's like a speeding ticket. So it's so funny that you said that. So if I'm going 60 miles an hour in a 55 and he pulls me over, he has latitude to decide if he's going to give me a ticket or not. So I think we both need to flip, like a fine isn't an automatic fine, you know what I mean? We, the board,
now you're
has...
getting to the weeds.
What?
Yeah.
I think everybody should get a warning.
Everybody gets a
A
warning.
warning.
Right.
Not everybody.
No, I mean, you know,
That's right,
Everybody.
yeah.
first time. What did we do last time?
Got
We
a
didn't-
color your hair blonde
Did we
or
give
something.
warnings? Oh, we did.
Only part of the way until we was discovered that the bylaw didn't allow for a
Right.
warning.
Oh, okay.
And,
Yeah.
I was thinking
Yeah.
very black and white,
Right.
not thinking
Yeah.
we had a little bit more latitude,
Right.
could exercise.
So here we are, and the water bills just went out, so we have 3 months till the next one. So what are we gonna do for our first opportunity for a bill stuffer to educate people in the water bill that's gonna go out early in July, is it?
So we do need to get a new bill printer because the whole debacle that happened a couple months ago
Mhm.
where town canceled the contract.
Yeah,
I would like to explore this Happy Lawn.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'd like to do
Yeah,
this.
Yeah.
that's
If-
cool.
fine by
And
me.
try and get it on Channel 18 with Jim, because sometimes it's just, a page.
Right, well, if we can get, there's a whole database thing that they've created that I haven't looked at yet, but if we can get, with the new bill printing, we can get that usage comparison from,
Right.
you
Right.
versus your neighbors. We can start to
oh,
implement
that'd be nice.
some of these educational
Yeah.
components.
That's right.
We could do a bill stuffer, on how much irrigation do you really need?
Right.
I'd like to see one go before the summer, because, July.
Well, the
is-
July
No.
bill, we may be in restrictions before July. I don't, I'd be
Right.
interested to see how the season
Right.
plays out.
There is some stuff on Channel 18. Maybe we could ask Jamie rather than trying to sit and stare at it, what's already on there. Like, I've seen something about grass clippings and mowing and other stuff, so maybe we can start off by, it's not as good as that stuff, but we might as well find out what's already on there.
And I don't know, somehow reach out to the towns that are all drawing from the Monomoy lens to see if we can get, if there's interest in getting together and trying to get something together.
I think we
I
should.
think there's, and
Well, I think it's
what
also,
Let's see what
it's
goes.
going to be less subjective this year, I think, too.
Right.
Because the new regs are mandating, once we get
Right.
to level 1, it's 1 day a week.
Do
That's
they
it.
say which day? Like, do they?
No, we will have to, you know,
choose?
there's some discretion. We will have to, you know, whether it's even on Tuesday, odd on Thursday, you know.
Yeah.
It almost seems like we have to give the part-timers a weekend day.
Orleans has now 1 day a week in their permit, and they implemented restrictions last year, but as far as I understand, they didn't necessarily police or establish a set
Right.
day. I also believe they have the automatic meter reading software where they can tell,
They do.
yeah, they can just, I can read your meters through the push of a button, the whole
Oh,
town.
right on the,
Right on the computer every day. I can get a daily
Really?
report. Yeah.
What
Could
do
we
we have
do
to
that?
do?
I've requested the pricing. The meter guy was here. Was it last Tuesday?
Yeah.
Yeah. Last Tuesday. There is a subscription. It's part of the, you know, however many.
Yeah.
It's per user account.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's like $30,000 a year annually, if I'm remembering correctly. But the meter technology that we've upgraded to is compatible with that. It's just the next stage of investment that we have to put up, basically like mini cell towers to make sure that we can get the reads. But then we can say, all right, well, you used 1,000 gallons before, you know, 6 a.m. this morning. You're definitely irrigating, you know.
But we could also do it to.
It also shows
instead of
leaks,
driving around
too.
town, we can do it right from the
We need
office.
to do
Is it
that.
something
Yeah.
you put on the
I didn't
meter?
realize
Is
that.
it
The meters
in
are
there?
already
Yeah.
sending out the necessary signal. It's we have to
That's,
do a radio propagation
Okay.
study to put an antenna up
I see.
in the appropriate
Yeah.
location.
So the
receive-
meters are all
panels.
set.
with the
meters.
few exceptions that
Yeah.
people,
Yeah,
you know.
I should say people hours. It's people hours.
I'm all
thank you,
for it.
Gary.
Just,
I didn't even catch
I
that.
did, I
That
just.
was good.
uh,
If you say woman, then you're
I'm all
covered,
for it.
because man is right in that woman.
Yeah. Well, one,
try.
one is
Linda,
trying
what's her
nice.
name says that. It is
Just
true.
try.
It
But
is
that's what,
true.
that's what I'm saying. I
Yeah.
think, I have spoken to a couple other towns, and there was some interest. There is interest in doing that, getting together as a group and trying just to get, you know, we probably aren't gonna win a lot of the arguments, but we have to be open-minded to try and
Yeah.
move forward at least together as a group. I think that's what we need to do.
Two of the towns, they want to go, they like the odd even, everybody.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just,
I think we
Yeah.
definitely should do the water summit.
Yeah.
I think that's a
Well-
great idea.
Whatever method people use to lower water use doesn't really matter from time to, odd even works for them, you know, and something else works for us, as long as we lower water use.
So just to move on, with the water restrictions and the, water summit, we'll call it, what do you want to call it? I'd be happy to start working on that and report back and see what we can come up with as far as, interest and, some kind of game plan of how we're gonna proceed. So, Mr. Morton, if you guys, I'll do that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
thank you.
All right, Dan, I'm sorry, Noreen.
Sorry, before we go on from water restrictions, we never did hold a public hearing on our bylaw change. Okay, I figured this was a good place to slip it in. So, what do we want to do?
I mean, yeah, well, it's to the board or for me.
I think we have to, right?
I mean, I think it's a good process to go through.
I do.
Tracy, I'm gonna lean on you for a second here. Advertising in the Chronicle for a public meeting, is it by Friday for the following week?
Let's see. Yes, yep,
Especially
Friday
because Monday's a
afternoon.
holiday.
Do you have to post it twice for a public hearing?
Or to two places.
We run it for 2
Usually do
weeks.
run it for 2 weeks at least, so.
Right, that's what
You
I'm
could just have
remembering, there's
one
usually
place.
2 dates.
Yeah. So, if we're at the 12th, if we got the notice in, we'd have to, I think, get it in tomorrow, because Monday is a holiday.
Right,
We could do it Thursday the 28th.
Thursday the
Or
27th.
Sorry, the 27th, Thursday the 27th, or Friday the 28th.
Friday, I have an appointment at noon.
Yeah. I'm off Cape that Friday.
Thursday's fine with me.
Because are we talking during the day or in the evening?
I think,
It'll be the same time, like,
Yeah.
yeah, 11:30.
Part of the regular meeting.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the 27th?
But at the Griffin Room, all right?
You can do it either.
All right.
I mean, I'd be shocked if anyone shows
Right.
up, to be quite
All
honest,
right,
because we're going.
does the 27th work for everybody?
What time?
11:30?
Okay.
And they can make the public hearing like noon or something like
I had a
that.
meeting at 8:30, so.
All right, so we'll do 11:30.
Because the Chronicle publishes on,
But Wednesday is when the e-paper's out. So Wednesday.
Do you want to do it on Wednesday, the 26th?
I would be concerned doing it Wednesday.
Oh, not
Because
enough
that's
time.
Right,
The,
Okay.
yeah,
that'll be the
the
second.
paper's available the 27th.
And the
technically,
26th.
And the
so.
26th.
For some, yeah.
But,
Yeah, I think you're right. It's gotta be the 27th or 28th. 27th's fine by me.
26th is Administrative Professionals Day.
Oh, boy. Well, we
Ooh.
can't go to that,
That's
Al.
his day.
So, I guess I just want to say, if, this topic comes up at a town meeting, we intended to have public hearings earlier, but we wound up working on the bylaws. They changed so much for a whole solid year, that, what I'm trying to say.
well, I think, our concern with doing it close to town meeting was such that if someone had a valid input that we wanted to change something based on the public hearing, that it would give us an opportunity to react to the public hearing prior to town meeting. That said, where we're only talking about 50 to 100 and 100 to 300, if there was, 300's the state, it's the cap, right? It's the
Right.
legal limit that we can go up to. So I just can't see any change of substance before town meeting.
Right. It would be, somebody would have to be saying, I know I'm gonna break the regulation, I know I'm gonna get a fine, but I only wanna be charged 50, not 100, so it's a pretty unusual,
Right.
situation to be lobbying
Yeah.
for.
We said 11:30, right, not 11?
And then we have to do
11:30.
since we can
Yeah.
report
What's that?
on the location.
Yeah, at the water department.
Okay.
All right, so Thursday the 27th at 11:30.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, we don't post the agenda, do we? It's just a public hearing. We can go over
Well,
it.
I'll
Don't
have to
you-
post it. We're gonna be having
Right.
No, what I mean in the newspaper, sorry.
it.
The newspaper's just a notice, date and time.
Yes, right.
Don't you usually on the agenda put that
Yeah.
special section that says
Our meeting is first and second.
third, fourth, fifth? No, she said town meeting's first and second, and I said third, fourth, and
No.
fifth.
Yeah, I know, it's gonna go, right? No, you're right.
Dan, you have anything else? Are we talking about the Lothrop Law Project, or we can hold off on that?
Well,
Oh, I forgot again. I
Yeah.
forgot, yeah.
it was intended to be Lothrop Lawn. I was supposed to have a meeting yesterday with Sean.
Oh.
I'm actually having it this afternoon with Sean Fernandez from the Golf Department to get a game plan together for converting Lothrop over to one of the micro clover,
Alright.
maintenance-free, hopefully newly adopted Cape Cod lawns.
All right, so just fill us in on that. All right. Commissioners Club, Mr. Thompson.
Oh, I did have sorry.
I'm sorry, we'll be on you. Go ahead.
I just wanted to also note the 2022 Consumer Conference Report, the CCR, that has all our annual water quality sampling is completed and is being posted townwide tomorrow, as well as a live link in the bills that are going out. And also completed the annual statistical report, which is our annual report to DEP with all of our pumping, consumption, all that information. So those are both Done.
Wow.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson?
I'm good.
Ms. Underwood?
I'm good.
Ms. Donahue?
I'm fine.
Mr. Goff?
All set?
The only thing I have at the end is that, can you just make sure we do get the correct numbers?
Yeah.
From GHD about that 2.5? That's all I have. All right, motion to adjourn?
Come on.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.